Okay, welcome back. What we're going to talk about now is just a few of what we call the basic mixes. So we took a good 40 minutes there and explained to you a little bit about the colors, how the colors work. Let's talk a little bit about the continuality or continuing with the basic six color palette and how some of our mixes work. In the Paint It Simply program, you don't really need to, start out with the six. You don't really need to always go to the 14, even with some of the 14 color lessons that we show later on. If you want to paint those with the six, you can, because the colors just occupy the same position area on the wheel. But let's talk about in the instructions. Like here on the packet, like I said before, is you're going to have your first basic colors that you put out here. These are the six colors that you put out. Then the next step down is to mix what we call the first mix, which is to put out your bases. And bases are basically toned versions of the other colors. And what I mean by tone is anytime that when you study color theory, anytime you take two colors and you mix them together, the resulting color is always more toned. So we consider it a tone. And what I mean by tone is not quite as bright. It's not quite as bright as an original color. And that's because you get these collision of these paint molecules. They block more light, and then you can never really make a color brighter. It always gets more tone because you're adding physically more stuff into it, dirtying up the mix, okay? So when a color has just one pigment in it, we say it's pure. When you take two colors and you mix them together, the resulting mix is said to be, it's called a mix. It's not called a pure color. And so we have mixes, but we do have some that we still stay out here, what we call very bright. Out here on the wheel that you have here is we have my original six colors except for my black and white. Black and white belong inside the center of the wheel here because they are what we call tertiary colors. They contain all color. Black is really the absence of light. White is all colors together. That's what gives you white light. And but if you don't understand that completely, you don't need to understand all of that huge color theory knowledge to paint simply. You don't need to do it. You just need to set up your colors like this. If you want to, we have hundreds of hours of DVDs on theory that I explain to it. You can even watch all the color theory DVDs or all the color theory videos for free on adptv.com, and you can watch everything that you want there. It's all there for you if you want to know more. But this has all colors in it. This is the absence of color, but they're tertiary. Tertiary means that you take all three colors together. So whenever I take all three colors together, let's say, for example, if I take some of my yellow out here, and if I take some of my red that's out here, and if I take a little, and I'll take just a little bit of my blue since it's so powerful, and I mix those together, I'm going to get what we call a tertiary color, or basically like a brownish color that you get here. Okay, and if it's more heavy onto the red and yellow, like I had here, you get kind of like a real toned orangish brown here. If I wanted to get it a little bit more brown, then I would add just a little bit more blue over here, and I'll get it just a little bit more towards the brown side here. Okay, and that blue is so powerful, you got to watch that. But you can get all different kinds of browns and stuff. All these colors go together because they all have the same root to them. This is the beautiful thing. Artists for hundreds of years have always said, if you want to get more harmony to your painting, more beauty to your painting, you got to limit your palette so that all these colors, because every brown that I make here, like for example, I take this brown here. I can make beautiful run of yellows here that go exactly with this brown. Look at the beautiful tones of the yellows that I'll be able to create from this brown. And why? Because this, and you can see all your raw siennas, you can see your yellow oxides, your raw siennas, you can see those colors in there. And why do you see those in there? And why is it so much harmony? Because the yellow's already in there. That brown is just made with its two partners on the other side, creating the tertiary color. This is considered a tertiary color because it has the red, the yellow, and the blue in it. So it's considered tertiary. So whenever I take my red and my blue and my yellow together here, I will get a tertiary color. What tertiary means three. All three. The red, yellow, and blue. All three of those together. Okay? But if I take what we're going to do on the mixes, as you look through the mixes, we're going to create an orange. And if you look out here on the mixes, as you create an orange here, The orange color that you put out here, the base orange, is 3 parts Hansa yellow, 1 part naphtha red light. Well, that tells you immediately if it has to have 3 parts yellow to 1 part red, that tells you the yellow is weaker as a pigment to the red. But if I just take a little bit of my yellow out here and just add a little bit here, let's get close to 1 part here, of that together, somewhere around in there, I'm going to get an orange. I'm going to get a nice orange color, and that's a nice bright orange. This is not a tertiary color. This one is called a secondary color because it has 2. It has just the red and the yellow in it, so it's a secondary color. So it will go right out here. We'd put that out here on the wheel because we do not have anything in it that causes it to tone down. We don't have it tertiary, okay? So anything that you mix here, if I wanted to make more of a Christmas red, here, if I took this red here, and if I add just a little bit of the red violet to it, I will make a more Christmas red. See the more beautiful Christmas red that you get. And if I take that color, so I'd have my orange, and then I'd have my red orange here, and then I'd have my Christmassy red, and I'd go all the way over here to my red violet. Probably have just a little more red violet in that. You can see the run of reds I made. Those would all go right here. So my Christmassy red would go there. My orange would go right in there. And that would be that beautiful run there. But since this Christmas red is made from red and it's made from the red violet, it would go here as a secondary color. How would you make a color here is you would add any kind of yellow to make it tertiary. This ring in here, this ring that's in here is what we do when we say the colors become more tertiary. They're more toned. So when you look at your palette, or when you look at a completely mixed up palette, here, let's look at my dirty one here again, with some of the colors that I have all mixed up. These colors here, this beautiful yellow green that's here that I love to paint leaves with, this toned yellow green, which is called a tertiary yellow green, or this particular nice toned, which you see right there. You can see the color already there. My toned yellow, my base yellow here. These particular colors here, my blues and so on and so forth. These colors that I have here are all tertiary. Now, how do you make them tertiary? You just have to have all 3 parts of your red, yellow, and blue, or you can do what we do in the Paint It Simply program, is we make a base tone, which is very, very popular with painters of old. They make a base tone, like a base brown or something like that. And that becomes a very, very important pigment in our mixing. So right in here on our mix, one of the first things we'll mix up is what we call our base brown. And when you look at that, you have a base brown. Your base brown is 2 parts naphtha red light, 1 part carbon black. Now, why does it go into the center of the wheel? Why is the red with black? Because black is into the center of the wheel. Basically what we're doing is we're taking a red and a black, and we're mixing in this way. So we're going to put that color right here. If we mix this red and this yellow, we're mixing this way. If we mix this red and this black, we're going to mix this way. We're going to make colors this way. They're not going to be very bright colors. So if I take 2 parts of my red here, and if I take just 1 part of my black here, or anything close to it, any of the mixing that you do here does not have to be perfect. Every color you make, since you're going to be working with a limited palette, every color you make is correct. They're all beautiful together. You just adjust them a little bit for what you want. I want this a little darker here, a little bit darker, a little more browner, so I add just a bit more of the black to it here. And I got this beautiful, real rich, kind of reddish brown, which is really what I like, which is really closer to some of your umbers, like your burnt umber. Your burnt umber belongs up towards that way. So it's really kind of a burnt umber type of pigment. That's where it belongs. So I have this brown. Now, once I make this brown like this, if I want to make any of these tertiary colors, any of these beautiful greens, you can follow the mixes here, okay? Which if you go down to your next mixes here, it'll say like your toned yellow green. This particular green that I have here is 4 parts Hansa yellow, 1 part base green, and a touch of base brown. all of these colors, you look at them out here, all of these real toned ones that are out here usually have just a little touch of the base brown. If I want to take my yellow and I want to make that particular color there, I add just a little bit here of the base brown. And I tone that yellow right on down. And the more of this brown that I add, the more toned this brown, this yellow becomes, until I get it right over there to that particular tone right there. I can mix that one up right there. If I want to, let's say, for example, I want to make a nice toned yellow-green. Well, I know I make a green. My green comes from my yellow, and my blue is so powerful it takes just a little bit of the blue to make a green. It just takes a little bit here to make a green here. And then to get that, then I just take a little bit of my brown into that to start to tone this down here, and you get a nice toned green. And if you wanted a little bit more of a yellow green, this has you can see just a little more yellow in it. So if you want just a little more yellow in it, then add just a little bit more yellow. And of course, when you brighten it, you'll need to add just a touch more of your base brown to it. Touch base brown. Anything. You can even add some of this toned yellow over here. Just something just to tone it down and dirty it down, and you'll get right over to that particular color, and you'll hit that color just exactly the way you want that color to be. So you'll have, as you mix through, we're going to make a base brown. We're going to put our base brown in here. Then we're going to make a base green, our base green, and you can see all of this. This is the basic. You have a photo of this. This is all of the basic mixes and stuff that you have in the Paint It Simply, what we call the mixed out, the basic mixed full palette mixed out. I don't always use all of this in all of the lessons, and you'll see that when you look at it. But this is the full palette. This is a medium white. It's made from a little bit of white and yellow and base brown. This is our yellow green, toned dark green, these blues that are here. The formulas for all of those are all here. Here's your dark blue, your medium blue. Here's all these. You can mix them all out. As you see, though, here is, when you look at this particular palette here, in my actual painting palette that I use here, I don't have all of them mixed up, because I like some of the blues if I'm doing rose mauling, but I don't like them, so I don't have all of my blues. You don't see my medium blues. You don't see the real toned reds in here. This is just dirty extender water that's spilled up here, but you don't see those reds, those 3 reds there. I don't use them. In some of the lessons, in some of the beginning books, when you start out with the beginning Paint It Simply in the books, the Painting Impressions Volume 1, Painting Impressions Volume 2, in the beginning rose mauling books, you'll see me mix out the entire full palette. And part of that is to help teach you what the palette does, how the palette works. But as you get going, then you'll see you don't need to have all those mixes there. You'll know how to mix them. And as you can see from here, once you understand how that palette works and goes around, majority of the time, like when you watch me demonstrate at conventions and stuff, I am painting only with these colors out like this, because I know how to make this toned yellow-green. I know this toned yellow-green is Hansa yellow, just a little bit of phthalo blue, and a little bit of that base brown. And that base brown is 2 parts red to 1 part black. I can start manipulating my palette any way that I want. Let's say you've never made a toned violet before, okay? Let's say you want to make a toned violet. Well, okay, let's look at our colors here, like our color wheel, red's up there. What is violet? Violet is going to be right in here. It's a purple. So you're going to take some of your phthalo blue, right? You're going to take some of your red violet. You're going to mix them together. You get this purple color. Man, that's a purple. And if you want it even more, you can say, oh, I want mine a little bit more to the violet side. Let's get a little more red violet into that. Okay, now you have a purple here that's a little bit more towards the little bit of the violet side. If you want it lighter, then you just reach over here and you grab some of your white, and you can make yourself a lighter purple, okay? A lighter blue violet, and then you can add more And if you want it even more red, let's put some up here so you can see it on the reddish side here too. So you get from a red violet down to a purple, down over here to a blue violet. Let's just do that so you can see that. So you get your colors here. So you get the purples and the colors that you want to have in here. Now, if you like those particular colors, you can use them like that. If you want it more toned, then you've got to make it more tertiary. And how do you make it more tertiary? Just reach over. If you want to gray it down, if you want to make a real soft violet, like a real soft violet background, let's say, I don't want to use this as a background, it's a little bit too bright for me. Well, then you can add just a little bit of your brown and that'll dirty it down. See how that starts to gray it down? And let's lighten it up so you can control how light the color is with your white. You can control how gray the color is with your base brown, or you could use black. Sometimes we'll use black for that as well, but you can control it. So after a while of working with the colors, okay, and it's going to take you a little while working with the colors. Once you learn with the colors, you'll be able to slide all the way around that wheel and know how to tone it very quickly, how to brighten it up very quickly. The goal of Paint It Simply is within the first year that you start reducing the amount of colors you're actually mixing, so you don't have any mixing. And we want to get you eventually into using a palette like this where you're just brush mixing everything really, really fast. So you'll be able to, say, okay, if I want to brush mix this, I want a yellow green. I know my toned yellow green is going to be over here like this. I'm going to grab some of my yellow. I'm going to grab just a little bit of my blue over here. Let's toss that in there until I get a yellow green. That's a bright yellow green. And then I'm going to tone it down by grabbing either a little black or a little brown, a little red and brown, and grab this and toss this into this yellow green until I get that yellow green color that I like there. That I got, and I can grab that and I can make that yellow green pretty quickly as a brush mix because you know what's inside that. Or if I want that more green, then I know I just add a little bit more of that blue and I get that more green. If I want it brighter green, then I know I can add more yellow. And I can make it brighter. If I wanted a brighter green onto the blue side, then I add a little bit of more of this. If I want more of a teal blue, then I add that. Because your teal blue would be here, your green will be here, your yellow green would be there. And then this is toned. And you make anything toned by just a touch of your browns in there. So you'll be able to paint all these beautiful leaves basically through a composition. You can paint all of these just by brush mixing and modeling these colors together like this. You'll get all these beautiful looks and colors that you can create so very fast with the Paint Simply. Once you understand that you're using your color wheel and you're working around your color wheel, and I make anything green, I'm going to go here and here. Does that make sense? Now, the other thing that we're going to add, the one last thing that we're going to add that's going to be very important that you'll see into the lessons is, let's say that I make a green. Let's just come back here to my yellow green. I make this real bright little yellow green here, okay? Now, if I am going to do the shadow side of the leaf, you'll see in a lot of the lessons that we do, the shadow side, shadow means cool. Anytime that you go away from the light, you're going to cool it down. It's a very, very easy thing to do. You have your tertiary color that's over here, which will cool it a little bit. But what you're going to see in a lot of the lessons is this is where we're going to get temperature. If I want something warm, then I add a little bit of the naphthol red light. If I want something cool, I add just the tiniest little bit of my red violet here. Will cool this color down. You can see it starts to change this color. And it depends on your computer monitor or your TV monitor just how much cooler that appears. But it'll cool it down. And if I use this one that's over here, this particular red that's over here, this will warm it up. So you're going to see a warmer color and a cooler color here develop inside this. And it takes just a little bit. Sometimes you don't want to go that much. But you can see this color here is cooler against that one there. But even if you can't, let's say that you're just beginning to paint, which is what we're hoping you're doing. You're just beginning to paint, and your eye can't see. Your eye can see the difference, but your eye doesn't know whether it's warm or cool. You added naphthol red light to this one right here. This one is warm. It is warm. You've added a warm pigment to the neutral color. It is warm. You've added here a cool color, the red violet, to the neutral pigment. It is cool. Okay? It has to be cool. So if you just get into the habit of your painting, anytime that you're putting a shadow side on something, anytime that you're getting in any kind of darkness, let's say you want to make this a darker green, and you want to make this darker green over here, you add some black, you make it darker, okay? Darker here. Well, then you should probably also, which is a good habit to get into, add a little bit of your red violet, and see, that cools that right down. That cools it and grays it even better. Add a little bit of that red violet. Then you definitely get a dark, cool color against there. So you don't have to see color with Paint It Simply. You don't have to see temperature. Let's put it that way. You don't have to see temperature to paint it. You just have to know that if I'm on the shadow side, I touch a little red violet. If I'm on the warm side, I can touch a little naphtha red light. Just a little in there, not enough to change the color as much. But you know that's going to warm that up and it's going to cool that up. So you'll see that in a lot of the lessons. You'll see us teaching you a lot of theory, color theory. But I want you to look at those lessons when you start going through there. Look at when they're at it. Look at when myself and the other teachers of this system, look when we're adding red violet, and look at when we're adding the naphtha red light, and look for the warms and look for the cools, and you'll see that. And you'll see me talk quite a bit. Cool it with some naphtha red. Cool it with some red violet. You'll see me say that several times. Okay. So you'll have the basic mixes you start out with in this program. You start out with mixing up those basic mixes. If you're a painter that's been painting for several years and you know some basic color theory, you might want to jump right into doing some of this. But I would mix out some of these mixes that you see, like the toned yellow green and the base green and the base orange. So you have a base orange right here. You'll put up a base orange. You'll put up a base green. You build up the base brown, and in some lessons we call it base violet. But you put out those bases and our base yellow, which is right there. You put out those bases, and then those will help you basically mix the other colors because they're a shortcut. Okay, so they're a shortcut, so that you can, that green that's in there is a shortcut to the other green. So if I have a base green here, and all I know is I take my base green and I can make it a yellow green, or let's just do it this way real quick. Here. So if I have my base green, okay, let's turn this around so I have a little spot here. So if I take my base green, this is my base green that's in my palette. If I want it more yellow green, it's easy. I just pick some yellow and I got a nice yellow green that's right here. If I want to make my base green and I want to make it more blue green, then I add a little bit of blue here and I have a blue green. So the base green is a nice one to have out just because it's a shortcut. And then if I want to have this cooler over here, or say I want to cool this down, this is a nice tealy green, I want to cool it down, then I add just a little bit of my red violet to it, and that cools that right down. If I want to warm that up, then I add a little bit of my naphtha red light over here, and you can see that warms that up as opposed to the cooling of this one down. So, but you don't have to see that quite as much as you do, because you know it happens, because the naphtha red light is warm and the red violet is cool. Okay, and since there's only 6 colors, you have to remember the learning will come very, very fast. Okay, all your colors are temperature neutral. Hansa yellow is very neutral. It's closer to a neutral. It's just a little bit to the warm side. Then you have your Teal Blue, just a little bit to the warm side of neutral. And then you have your black and your white, which of course are neutrals. Those are neutrals. A lot of people think black's cool. It's not. It's a neutral. It's a neutral, and the PBK7 is a neutral. So then we control the temperature very easy by adding what we have as a hot pigment, our naphtha red light, and adding what we have as a cold pigment, our red violet. And we can paint temperature, and you don't even need to see it. That keeps it a lot simple. Very, very simple. We keep it so you can paint simply. Okay, we'll take a little break here. We'll head over to the next section of the DVD where we're going to talk to you a little bit about the 14 color palette. Okay, and I'll set one of those up for you. I'll see you over there.